Hi team, welcome to another massive episode of the Altcoin Bible. Really looking forward to cracking in to show you the cryptos that I have for you today. We had some big news overnight in the United States with the CPI print came a little bit over forecasted, so markets have reacted quite violently to the downside. What is important to remember though, month on month, it is decreasing. Won't get into the weeds with the macro and where we see things going from here. However, we cannot discount what a big impact in the short term the macro does have on this market. So a few setups were ultimately destroyed overnight, and a few cryptos are really trying to hold themselves up and maintain that positive momentum that it has been trying to gain since Bitcoin's been making that 17,500 low, and we've been oscillating in this trough area. So let's crack straight in, because a lot of cryptos look fairly similar, but some, as always, buck the trend. And that's where we want to search for opportunities. So let me just bring that up. Okay, let's get rid of those because we do not need them. Okay, sweet. So let's get into these two cryptos here. So it goes without saying how important Ethereum is when we're talking about the Ethereum merge. It is the fundamental catalyst that has been driving a lot of bullish, positive momentum moving forward to right now, to the middle of September. Have we seen, the pump already? Buy the rumors, sell the news? Maybe, probably, who knows? We're seeing options markets and futures markets pricing that in quite heavily. So they're expecting a sell-off. So we do have to pay attention to that. But if we're just looking at the charts, generally we do see a strong anticipatory move into, let's say, this big catalyst event on the 15th, and then we have a sell-off, because it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everyone thinks the event is bigger than what it is. It comes, it doesn't, nothing really changes, and all that happened was a bunch of sentiment came in and drove the market higher, and then a lot of speculators and traders take profits towards the end. Absolutely can see that happening. Also, CPIs come in and really thrown a spanner in the works for Ethereum to have this final drive higher into the event. So that would be tomorrow in Australia. Not sure about the United States, probably another couple of days. But regardless, if we're just looking at this chart here, just on a longer term basis, looking at the daily, you can't discount that Ethereum is trying to break into this positive uptrend. So had the low here, had this higher high up here, and also a bunch of high highs through here, but just painting you the picture of the overall look of how this is going. And it really does seem like Ethereum wants to have this drive into maybe the 200 daily moving average, or these areas up here around 2,300. Might get there, might not. It all depends on Bitcoin and how everything is faring in the macro. But so far, so good in terms of Ethereum trying to catch itself here at a key support of volume. Now, as long as it holds this bar here, this level here, and doesn't fall into this gap here, which generally when we fall beneath these big floors in price, we can fall quite quickly and quite heavily down to the lower areas. See, price was bidded quite heavily here, and that means buyers came in quite strongly here as well as traders, and we moved up into this zone in here, and ever since, so 26% up, and ever since then we've had that drop, that real sudden violent drop overnight of 12%. If we pull up the Fibonacci retracement as well, just seeing if this, yeah, so that perfectly bounces off the 0.618 Fibonacci level here. That's a reasonably good spot. So that's a 68% retracement from that high. 0.786, we could absolutely see it there, but if we're looking at these volume patterns over here, we probably don't want it to go too much lower than that. But in the short term, what we really want to see Ethereum do is reclaim these moving averages, but importantly, get above this key horizontal, because this was the previous point of the breakdown. If it can really conquer this level here and run up to these areas here, then I think we're going to find some serious sellers up here. But in the shorter term, I think Ethereum's still a good thing running into this last little phase before the merge. After that, not so sure. Anything could happen. But so far, so good. The momentum still looks quite positive. RSI it's trying to create a low here, which isn't ideal, but it's shaping back up. Again, can't tell a hell of a lot. So we have to go by these key resistance levels and make sure they don't fail. If they fail, then it's going lower. If they hold, then I think Ethereum's going higher, just based on what I'm seeing here. And we also as well just want to keep in mind that again, the trend is positive. So we've got these lows here, these high lows. So low, it's higher than the last, higher than the last, higher than the last. So broadly, it's going higher. If you're zooming in any closer than the daily on the 4 hour, you might see a different scenario. coming to the fore in the short term, but there is absolutely no doubt it needs to reclaim these areas and get above this big sell candle. It needs to erase it just to get rid of it, give the market a bit more confidence again running into the merge. But yeah, so much bullish momentum pulling into Ethereum because of that merge, and it has for a while, I think, pulled up a lot of the altcoin market, moving into that fundamental catalyst. But again, macro has other ideas. Now, BNB looks super similar to Ethereum, and I just wanted to bring it up because Ethereum and BNB really are either one to watch, or I don't want to put it in cherry ripe, and I don't think I could really say many cryptos right now look, absolutely cherry ripe. So I really have to look at maybe fundamental catalysts, what could drive a crypto higher and give it that extra boost to maybe get us to those sort of targets that we're looking at, or just to guess where the direction of the market's going. I really want that confluence of indicators. If you have a fundamental catalyst in front of you as well as looking at the chart, you beauty. It's more likely that something's going to happen. But if you don't have something that's actually reaching for, then it's unlikely that it's going to have a real big drive higher, especially in more of a down market phase like we are, and we're looking for more capital. So BNB, though, wanted to pair up with Ethereum because when you think about BNB, Binance Coin, it is the coin of the largest retail crypto exchange on earth, Binance. So when you see the Binance coin begin to move higher, it means that there is actually quite a lot of volumes running through the exchanges. People are trading, they're buying and selling different coins. They're using the Binance Smart Chain to access the metaverse, that type of thing. So when you think of it in that context, almost like getting a bit of equity in Binance itself. And when it is starting to move, you know that there's a bit of juice coming. There's a bit of juice in the market. There's a bit of excitement. And I would think it's from the Ethereum merge. People are getting excited about either getting exposure to Ethereum for maybe an Ethereum forked coin. Again, won't go into the details on that, but you can also speculate that Ethereum as well, if it's going to see this quote unquote triple halving, over the next few months after the merge and all that, just structurally Ethereum changes. And in the past, when Ethereum has had, constricting of supply or a drive higher, it generally is a good sign for any altcoins built under Ethereum, or altcoins in general. Generally, they drive. So again, you can see the narrative, you see the speculative picture there I'm trying to paint for you. And that is why I think Binance or BNB is moving higher, and why it likely will follow Ethereum and what it does from here, because it is a similar pattern. Ethereum obviously did a little bit different. It didn't have these two big dumps here. But you can see here, it has that low, then it's come up here, higher low here, bounced off this, well, I don't want to say bounce, but it's hit this big volume pocket here, and then now it's coming back in here to contend with this. It's looking at these moving averages that are snaking through. I mean, that all looks good, but we need to get needs to get back on top of this little green horizontal which I've drawn. This is important again, like Ethereum, because it's the area where it previously had the big capitulation breakdown. It's going to take a bit to get on top of it. Once it does, though, if it finds this area of support on top, especially on top of this volume profile here, then this should play out. That should play out to the upside, should tag that 200 moving average and go from there. But again, anything can happen. The macro can change things. Alternatively, if it gets rejected here at this volume pocket, if it moves into, say, this red line here, which signifies that this is the highest area of volume in this area, that is a biggie. So generally price runs into that like it did over here, finds resistance and comes down. I mean, it was just a coincidence that CPI came out and did that to all the altcoins as well. But Binance, if it gets on top of that, these price targets are definitely on the offering and even higher. But if it gets rejected here again, then we have to think about some of these lows again, lower 200s. And whatnot. So just bear that in mind. The RSI is trying to move higher, so that's a positive as well. You do want to see that when we make those moves. As we move higher, though, we do want to be creating these higher highs on the RSI, signifying that bulls are gaining momentum. Now, if as well with just like Ethereum, maybe if I overlay the Fibonacci retracement and just see how we're looking. Yeah, so pretty much on the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement there as well. Again, probably don't want to go down to the 0.786 because that would signal we're falling into lower volume areas, and it will probably move to the downside lower. But yeah, bounce here, get on top of these couple of moving averages, and then it should be a show. But really, it is a one to watch for that reason. But still, I think it does look overall positive with that fundamental catalyst in Ethereum moving higher. So keep an eye on that. Now, Litecoin, I wanted to touch on this because it's in previous cycles often been called as the silver to Bitcoin's gold and all that. Hasn't quite had the follow through that many expected. Doesn't really matter if what you think about it, what your fundamental research analysis shows you. But I'm just looking at the chart here, and in previous cycles, Litecoin has often led Bitcoin. Haven't really seen that dynamic play out too much in 2021. So I think that narrative is potentially dead, but it does have a cap on supply as well. So it's pretty similar to Bitcoin. So, and at the end of the day, it is a fork of Bitcoin. So you can look that up yourself. But to me though, it doesn't look horrible here. I mean, it looks like it's forming into an ascending triangle. You can very clearly see that low there that just keeps moving up this trend line. Price keeps dancing on it and keeps bouncing higher. And this key support level, again, like the last few, had that key breakdown here, broke this here and fell all the way down. This here will be a huge area of resistance for Litecoin moving up. And you can see how much trouble Litecoin has had previously breaching through this line, wick, 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 wick everywhere. And this giant wick that just happened before, where I think, if I'm just going to speculate there, but generally you see that when traders and investors get a bit of FOMO, they see it breaking this key level, they start aping in with market buys or leverage longing and going through there, and then the whole market reverses on itself. So clearly CPI threw a spanner in the works there when Litecoin had been trying to break out. So it may just be a delaying factor. Once it gets above this volume profile and just retest it as support, this really looks primed to go to about 76. So for me, this is probably the closest to a cherry ripe I will probably put out there this week. The RSI moving nicely and a bunch of higher lows there, also shaping up to make a higher high as well. So yeah, a lot of things shaping up for me here, making Litecoin very, very tasty. 58.70, anywhere near this trend line is probably interesting, down near the 21 and the 50. Again, it's on both of them, so pretty happy with that. It's just this resistance level above before moving up to these key areas. So if you played this right, you can make a nice 24%. That's if it has the legs to get there. I would speculate that it probably could, but because it's on top of this key support, should get a lot of love. And as well, if you see on the right hand side, there's a lot of volume stopping it from moving up to the 200. And 100 is probably a bit of a more mid-term target, but in the shorter term, 77 looks pretty good. Okay, and finally, I wanted to end with a danger zone, because there's been so much talk, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, about Luna Classic, and it just shows you have to be very mindful of sentiment when it starts to get out of control. If you remember 2021, if you're in this market, then if not, all good. But and also 2017, when crazy coins, and I say crazy, but just sentiment-wise, Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, all the different offshoots of dog coins, Floki coin, popping up, from Elon Musk and all that, when they just going absolutely gangbusters and going crazy and just appearing on every influencer's radar, you're seeing it on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, all of that. While fundamentally the market doesn't look that strong as well, it's another big factor. You have to start questioning yourself, how much more legs does it have? Has it had a real thrust up and it's going to come back? Because you throw that rock into the lake or a small pond, you see the ripples go out, and eventually those ripples dissipate and get smaller and smaller and smaller. And with something like a Luna Classic, which is the original Luna token that went completely bust compared to their new token, this token is essentially, I'm probably going to limit you, but essentially worthless. It is taken on a bit of a meme token-esque vibe, and a lot of the community got super bullish, all through this area here, because the Luna Foundation, I believe, through an upgrade, we're going to initiate a 1.2% burn tax on every transaction of Luna Classic, and the exchanges that actually hold Luna Classic, which aren't many, we're going to support this. So if that was the case, then it creates a deflationary mechanism with that incredible amount of supply that's created through that Luna UST bust can start to be reduced over time, reduce supply, same demand, economics 101, price should go up. But this is entire speculation. So off the bottom there, 500%, how good is that? You made 500%, fantastic. But, somewhere along the way up here, you have to start thinking to yourself, is this sustainable? Is retail in the market? No, not really, it isn't. Even though, influencers are trying to get as many people in as possible, if there's not enough new money coming in to support a lot of these, let's say quote unquote meme tokens and sentiment driven tokens, then it's going to call off. Some big whales or big holders that are held down here or still have held down here are going to want to take some profits up here. It's just going to call off eventually, right? So that's what it did up here. And now, not a telltale sign, but a pretty good sign that something like this is going to burn out is incredible volume spikes. So really large volume spikes, same as over here. You see these big green volume spikes over here on this last peak, started to come down like that. We went into consolidation pattern up here, starting to turn around. But for me, one of the best signals for a move looking to peter out or create a correction is a bearish divergence in the RSI. So we had a peak here, and then let's say the top of this candle, and then the top of this candle. So consecutive higher highs and all through here as well. But what's happening on the RSI? If we go down here on this peak here, this was a really high peak on the RSI, and then this next major peak over here is lower than that last peak. So this tells me price is going higher and really driving while bullish momentum is fading. That is not what you want to see, because generally that happens just as it's exhausting itself, and then it reverses. And what happened after that bearish divergence? RSI fell off a cliff. So if you're still holding through this area, and you know, I know I was actually involved in Lunar Classic through here in a short-term trade, and I got out when I saw this bearish divergence. As soon as you saw it trigger, for me, when price is still up here and you see the big gaps and how far away it is from these key moving averages, and also how much volume it's lacking on the right-hand side, for me, it was a no-brainer to get out, hedge risk, and then see where it plays out and maybe look for a re-entry. But again, it is a hyper-speculative, high-risk play, and you have to know that with some of these meme coins, because it could not come, it may not come back. It could go all the way back down to these kind of levels, or even to zero. I don't know if it go to zero, but it could also, again, this could also be a falling wedge, come back down, test the 21 before it reloads and goes higher. But it doesn't matter if you're doing a shorter term trade or looking for what's going to happen in the next 7 days. You've got to look at those factors and come down. So for me, Lunar Classic is still a massive danger zone for me. The RSI falling away, lots of unknowns up here, lots of whales probably looking to dump, lots of people holding on from the collapse, still holding on and looking to dump as well at higher prices. So for me, danger zone. All right, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this altcoin Bible. As always, I love them. I have a blast. So any questions or comments, reach out to me. More than happy to answer. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And let's see some bullish action in the markets. Bye.